Hi, and welcome to this video about nuts. Nuts! Okay.
Before you start, Stephen, can I tell you that I was so addicted to nut butters, and I've noticed that a lot of people, when they're thinking about low carb, keto, or carnivore, they still leave a little bit of nuts in there. Macadamia nuts, Brazil nuts, and so on. And so I was hoping you could explain to us why that might not be the best idea.
Okay. Oxalates and lectins, just to name a few. And let's make it really basic. Raw nuts can kill you. So cashews and peanuts are roasted for a particular reason. And there's still a process when you think that they're not roasted. They're not raw. You will die from raw nuts. That's definitely the case. One of the biggest things about nuts is it's very unusual in nature to have protein and fat and carbohydrates. Okay, so what other thing in nature has protein, fat, and carbohydrates in sort of big quantities all the way through? It's breast milk. And what is nature's design for that? That's to make babies grow and get fat. So nuts do have this mix. They also have fiber. So fiber, as we've talked about in another video, if you haven't, do check out the one about fruit and veg. Fiber is contraindicated. It's not particularly good for your digestion, but you've also got carbs, fat, and protein. So there is a thing called the Randall cycle. So when you eat carbohydrates and fats at the same time, the Randall cycle is a process by which they inhibit each other and they're not really metabolized efficiently. And what happens is you put on body fat, which is why eating lots of nuts, even though allegedly they're healthy, is not exactly healthy. And I think most people that love nuts know that if they have too many, they start to put on weight. So although you think of it as a healthy snack, not many people eat one peanut or one cashew, for instance. Cashews are pretty sweet. It also inhibits many things like the GIP, gastric inhibitory peptide. That is inhibited by nuts, and that will elevate your insulin. What does that do? That stimulates fat accumulation, and it actually stimulates your appetite. And everybody that eats nuts knows that, because it's like, these are really, really nice, because they've got this wonderful mix of fat and carbs, which does hit the dopamine centers of the brain. Yes. So when you're looking at the gastric inhibitory peptide, which elevates insulin, strangely enough, diabetics don't get that response. So nuts push up the blood sugar. So that's an interesting thing. There's no insulin response. There is a blood sugar response. So you get more glycation. So anything with nuts in is a big problem for everybody because of the fat, protein, carbohydrate mix, but also because you have the issue with diabetics actually eating nuts and having their blood sugar go up. And that's something you can prove. That is absolutely something you can prove, because if you're at home and you're diabetic and you think that can't be true, for the first time ever, just have some nuts. I'll give you permission to do that. Look at your continual blood glucose monitor, and then you can comment in one of our meetings and say, yeah, that actually happened to me. Almonds, for instance, they're bad because of the high omega-6, which is an inflammatory compound, obviously. It also has phytic acid, which binds to nutrients, which is, again, something we talked about with vegetables. Cashews, they're a seed. And to answer your question from earlier, they are technically a fruit. And they're the same family, and this is going to put you off cashews, as poison ivy. But many people think they're a legume, but they're absolutely not. And they have tons of carbohydrates. And I will confess, when I was keto, cashew nut butter was what I went into. High oxalates, which really has a big effect on calcium absorption. So excess calcium goes off and can make kidney stones, basically. So it has a positive calcium effect in that it makes it absorbed more, but it absorbs calcium so much, goes into kidney stone formation and arteries as well. And of course, you've got the inflammatory response from lectins, for instance. There's studies I'd love to talk about from lectins, but it's a bit too much at the moment. So what we'll do, we'll wrap up with just that little whistle stop talk about nuts. Was that all right?
Thank you, Coach Stephen. I never want to touch a nut again. Not that I would, but this was incredible. So many reasons for us to let that go and not even consider that being a part of our diet at all. Thank you.